Vanakkam. Hello friends. We have been seeing about the early Pandyas of how the first king who occupied the seat of Koodal was Nedunthir Chezhiyan, followed by Vollayur Thanda Bhuda Pandian who died in battle trying to protect Koodal. Next in line comes a ruler whom, according to K. N. Sivaraja Pillai, the noted historian, is the most important of the early Pandya rulers, and his importance is revealed by the several names that were bestowed on him as honorific titles. Pasumponn Pandian alias Pannadu Thanda Pandian alias Nilam Tharu Thiruvil Pandian alias Vadimbalamba Nindra Pandian alias Nedunchezhiyan II. K.N.S. opines that this ruler did not get his due in terms of fame for posterity in history, the reason being that his exploits went under different names and were adduced to different Pandya rulers over different time periods by the Tamil scholars and historians who did not do enough research in collating the references mentioned in different Sangam poems regarding this king. Actually, all the names that we find are epithets, meaning that they do not reveal the proper noun of the king, as was the poetic convention in those days. And K.N.S. shows that by correlating the references of contemporary poets found in the Sangam works, one is able to deduce that all these different names point to the single ruler whom he identifies as Nedunchezhiyan II, while Pasumponn Pandian is just a generic name, where Pasumponn means ornaments made out of pure gold. So, the king who wore these ornaments, this Pandya king annexed several territories and expanded the early Pandya kingdom, because of which he was given the title Pannadu Thanda Pandian. The most significant among his victories were the conquering of the Ai kingdom to the west of Koodal and occupying the Konga territories which were to the north of Koodal. Immediately after his succession to the throne, Nedunchezhiyan II turned his attention towards the north of Koodal that was then occupied by Evi II. Remember, in a previous episode, we saw how Ahudai, the original chieftain who ruled over Koodal, went to battle with Evi I and won over him. This Evi I was probably the grandfather of Evi II who faced Nedunchezhiyan II, points out K.N.S., and obviously Ahudai had not annexed Evi's territory to Koodal then. The lines of Paranar in an Ahananuru poem point out very clearly of how Pasumponn Pandian waged a battle with Evi II, defeating him and annexing his territory to Koodal. Next, Nedunchezhiyan II set his sights on the Ai kingdom that lay to the west of the Pandya territories, and a passing reference in another Aham poem by Paranar shows how Pasumponn Pandian marched with his retinue of army into the Ai territories of the Podiyal hills. Ahananuru poem 162 under the Kurinjithinai, the verses go, Nasai பிழைப்பு அறியா கடல் தொடி அதிகன் கோள் அரவு அறியா பயங்கெழு பலவின் வேங்கை சேர்ந்த வெற்பகம் பொலிய வில் கெழு தானை பசும்பூன் பாண்டியன் களிறு அணி வெல்கொடி கடுப்ப காண்வர ஒளிருவன இழிதரும் உயர்ந்து தோன்றும் அருவி. The victorious flags atop the tall elephants of King Pasumponn Pandian look like the waterfalls coming down the mountains in cascades as the king marches with his army with soldiers carrying spears into the Podiyal regions, the regions abundant with jackfruit trees and vengai trees that belonged to Ai Adihan, the one who wore warrior anklets and gave generously to the bards who sang his praise with honest words. While this is just a passing reference, in the Ahananuru poem 338, the poet Madurai Kanakayanar clearly establishes Pasumponn as the ruler of the Podiyal hills. குன்று ஓங்கு வைப்பின் நாடு மீக்கூறும் மரம் கெழுதானை அரசருள்ளும் அறம் கரைப்பிடித்த செங்கோலுடன் அமர்மரம் சாய்த்து எழுந்த வலன் உயர் திணிதோள் பலர் புகழ் திருவின் பசும்பூட் பாண்டியன் Anangudai Uyarnilai Porupin Kavaan, the beautiful Podiyal hills wherein lived the Anangu, the forest spirits, belonging to the strong-shouldered Pasumbun Pandian, who rose up with strength and ruined his enemies and rules with a just scepter, the one praised by many as the greatest among brave kings who ruled over tall mountainous regions. Immediately after this conquest, Pasumbun Pandian seems to have renamed a territory in the I kingdom after him. A beautiful town in the foothills of the Western Ghats in the Thovalai Taluk of Kanyakumari district was renamed as Alagiya Pandiyapuram, and KNS points out how in some of the oldest records the name reads Adiyanur Endra Alagiya Pandiyapuram. KNS claims that this town was renamed to celebrate the victory of Pasumbun Pandian. Not only that, he goes on, and I quote, "What strikes me as peculiarly significant is the existence of another town with a rock-cut temple just 3 to 4 miles to the south, Budapandi by name, the headquarters of the taluk." Now, probably after this conquest, Pasumbun Pandian renamed this city in honor of Budapandyan, and from this, KNS deduces that this Budapandyan should have been the father of Pasumbun Pandian. And what struck me was that while going through the present day map of Kanyakumari district, well, of course, the Thovalai Taluk is there, so are the towns of Budapandi and Alagiya Pandiyapuram. By a vigorous policy of expansion, Pasumbun Pandian was able to extend his kingdom with this victory over the I regions up to the brim of the Arabian Sea, and hence he was given the honorific title Vadimbu Alambu Nindra Pandian, which literally means the Pandian whose lands are washed by the waves of the two seas on both sides. And to celebrate this great good fortune, he seems to have conducted a sea festival mentioned in a poem sung by the poetess Nettimayar, who comes at a later period. And this poem is actually in praise of one of the successors of this king, Palsalai Mudugudimi Peruvazhi, where the line goes, "Sennir Pasumbon Vairiyarku Eetha Munnir Vilavin Nediyon." Though some of the commentators who came later explained the term Pasumbon Vairiyarku Eendon as generally a ruler gifting the bards with gold ornaments, here by means of the term Nediyon, which comes in the next sentence, KNS deduces that it should refer to one of the ancestors of the hero in whose praise this poem was sung, namely Palsalai Mudugudimi Peruvazhi, and hence claims that this ancestor should be Pasumbun Pandian. Another point of contention is the Purananuru poem 76 sung by Idaikunrur Kirar that goes, "Oruvanai oruvan adudalum tolaidalum puduvadu andru ivvulagathu iyarkai." We have witnessed a king facing another in battle and defeating him, but never have we seen one king facing a coalition of 7 kings and defeating them, as did the great Pasumbun Cheriyan. Nadukelu Thiruvin Pasumbun Cheriyan, Peedum Semmalum Mariyar Koodi, Porudum என்று தன்தலை வந்த புனை கடல் எழுவர் நல்வலம் அடங்க ஒருதான் ஆகி பொருதுகளத்து அடலே. Cheriyan being the common name by which Pandian kings were known, this poem mentions Pasumbun Pandian as Pasumbun Cheriyan contents KNS, whereas the great Tamil scholars like U.V. Saminath Iyer and Avai Durasamy Pillai, who gave commentaries on this Puram poem, correlated this with another Agananuru poem, which was sung indeed in praise of Thalayalanganathu Cheruvendra Nedunchezhiyan, showing how he defeated a coalition of 7 kings, and claimed that this poem too was sung in praise of the same king. However, KNS tends to differ and mentions maybe history repeats itself and concludes that this Purananuru poem 76 was sung in praise of Pasumbun Pandian, and the Agananuru poem sings of Thalayalanganathu Cheruvendra Nedunchezhiyan, who is identified as Nedunchezhiyan III in KNS's genealogy table. Now, historians like K.A. Neelakanta Sastry and P.T. Srinivasa Iyengar do not mention Pasumboon Pandian at all, while the historian Mailai Sini Venkadasamy mentions that Pasumboon Pandian and Thalayalanganathu Siruvendra Nedunchezhiyan are one and the same. In fact, Vadimbalamba Nindra Pandian is mentioned as a mythical king by Nilakanta Shastri from the Thiruvilayadal Puranam, which was a mythical epic written by Paranjodi Munivar in the 16th century, taking place in Madurai and describing the Leelas of Lord Shiva. In his book The Pandyas from the early times to the 16th century, Nilakanta Shastri does not deal in detail with the early Pandyas. He refers to a few contemporary historians like Diwan Bahadur Swamikanna Pillai and quotes Vincent Smith, who was the first person to have written a history of India, wherein Smith commented on the early Pandyas thus: "The clumsy names and titles of these numerous kings cannot be brought into any meaningful chronology." Though Shastri gives the Sangam works only a cursory glance, he does enlist a series of poems sung in praise of Pandya kings, as well as a few poems that were sung by the Pandya kings themselves. One such famous poem being Purananuru poem 182 by Kadalul Mainda Ilam Peruvazhi, that starts, "Undal amma ivulagam indirar amildam eivadu ayinum." This world exists because of men. Even if they were to get the nectar of Indran, that is amildam, will not drink it alone. Men with no hatred, without laziness, they will give up their lives for fame, but will not accept fame if it comes with dishonor, even if they were to gain the world. Men with noble virtues, who exert their power not for themselves but for others. Now, this Peruvazhi does not find a place in the genealogy tables of KNS, and there are two more poems in Nattinai and one in Paribadal, which itself is a later work, all written by a Peruvazhi. Now, this Peruvazhi could not have been the same as the author of this poem, that is Kadalul Mainda Ilam Peruvazhi, where the event that brought him the prefix Kadalul Mainda Ilam, meaning one who died at sea, itself has no historical correlation. It is claimed that he lost his life trying to save others during a tsunami. Another Puram poem, for instance, by Perayil Muruvalar, sings the praise of one Nambi Nedunchezhiyan, and there is another beautiful Purananuru poem sung by Pisarandayar in praise of a Pandian Arivudai Nambi. Avai Duraisamy Pillai points out to the practice of the Great Three, who rewarded chieftains who fought by their sides and won victories for them with honorific titles that included the family name. So, according to him, Nambi should have been a chieftain who presided over a territory within the Pandya domain and was awarded the title Nedunchezhiyan by King Nedunchezhiyan himself. Similarly, Nilakanta Shastri also points out the ambiguities in the copper plates of the medieval Pandya period, such as the Chinnamanur plates and the Velvikudi plates, that assign honorific titles to the early Pandyas but include mythical accounts to explain them. He concludes that the Sangam works had to be re-evaluated from a historical point of view, and there was scope for a good monograph on the subject. Now, this is exactly what KNS did when he brought out the chronology of the early Tamils in the year 1932, following K.A. Nilakanta Shastri's The Pandyas, which was published in 1929. After the defeat of the I kingdom, I Adigan becomes a subordinate chieftain of the Pandya king, and he had to take command of the Pandya forces in leading them to battle against the Kongu country. Earlier, the very I kingdom that extended up to the southern borders of Coimbatore district prevented access into the Kongu country, effectively blocked the way of the Kudal king from entering into Kongu territory. But no sooner was Podiyil captured and the way cleared, Nedunchezhiyan II marched into the heart of Kongu country. In a Kurundogai poem 393, Paranar sings, "Mayangumalar kodai kulaya mahilnan, muyangiya naal dava silave alare, கூகை கோழி வாகை பரந்தலை பசும்பூன் பாண்டியன் வினைவல் அதிகன் களிற்றொடு பட்டன் யான்றை ஒளிருவாள் கொங்கர் ஆர்ப்பினும் பெரிதே." Well, again, this is an Agam song, and the setting is what a heroine's friend said to her as the hero listened from nearby. It was just for a few days that your lover embraced you, but gossip has risen. And this gossip is louder than the roars of the Kongu people with bright swords when Adigan, the able general of the Pandya king, fell along with his elephant in the field at Vahe. I, Adigan, died in this Kongu war fighting for Pandya Nedunchezhiyan II, who eventually conquered Kongu country and annexed it to the Pandya kingdom. This is evidenced by the lines of Nakirar, Vada Puvir Kongaroti, Nadu Palatanda Pasumboon Pandian in the Agananuru poem 253. So, by his vigorous policy of expansion, this Pasumboon Pandian laid the foundation for the early Pandya kingdom and hence was bestowed with the title Nilam Taru Tiruvil Pandian, which according to KNS is just a different phraseology of the title that he already held, Pannadu Tanda Pandian. The period of this ruler is given by KNS as between 50 Common Era and 75 Common Era. Now, we will continue to explore the early triumvirates in the coming episodes. Vanakkam.